What's up YouTube, Dal here from Zeph War Games, and today I am bringing you a budget Swordsoul build. So hopefully all of you have been able to pick up your Swordsouls from the most recent re-release of Mama or Magnificent Mavens. And if you haven't, go and grab them now. They are really cheap, and even the tennies themselves, because they have had double prints and some of them even triple prints, you should be able to pick them up relatively cheaply. This deck was once the king of meta, and sadly it hasn't really been hit on a ban list massively, and it still can't compete to the level that it once did. However, that being said, this deck is still incredibly powerful, and with the right matchup and the right plays, you will still be able to take some wins at your locals with the greatest of ease, especially when everyone forgets about this deck and then goes, oh yeah, Swordsoul are still a thing. So I'm going to take you through the profile, explain what we've got. I'll tell you what we've made to keep it budget. It is very easy to keep this deck budget, which is great as well. And hopefully if we do get a reprint of Ballon de Fleur in the future, we will be able to add that to the deck as well. So with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more upcoming content. So we're going to start off with triple Swordsoul Mo Yi. So this was the expensive card until it got a reprint in Magnificent Mavens. This is your ideal card for the deck, and the reason that that is so important is because on summon, whether it is normal or special, you get to reveal a Swordsoul card or a worm monster in your hand. Now all of the Swordsoul monsters, your strategist and of course your tire, will do that exact same effect, but they will gain an additional effect. And what I mean is they won't always reveal, but long one will be discard, and then tire will be banished, and then they will be able to spawn a token, which is a level 4 tuner. So you've got to keep that in mind, because that is something you're going to be going through very consistently. And keep in mind as well, once the token is on the board, you are locked into synchro plays, so you need to be aware of that before you try and go any further. But it's absolutely fine, because that's where you're going to be able to utilize the board state a little bit more and go that tad bit further. So that's your Mo Yi, your match winner in time. Keep in mind as well, sorry, when this is used as synchro material, you get to draw a card, which is really cool. The long one strategist is the level 6. This is the instigator for your level 10 synchros. Now obviously if you want to go draw turbo, you will go into your big bad boss monster in the form of your Qing Longwin. I believe I've absolutely Qingjin Long One. So basically the big badass. Now all of those got a reprint as well, so they should be very easy to get onto. When this is sent to the graveyard for synchro material, you burn your opponent for 1200. Absolutely insane. And then they gave them 1110 synchro that would then burn them for a further 2400 when they activate a spell or when they activate a special summon a monster. It's like, what? And then we've got 2 tire. You can play 3 if you want, but the issue is you need to set up your graveyard. So Tire obviously has the ability to banish from the graveyard, and you will need to get some form of a setup. Now obviously the setup is going to be a heck of a lot easier with tiers running around, but you don't really want to be relying on that. You don't want your opponent to have to be able to go, I'm going to mill the deck for you, because if you don't already open up Tire or a way to stop them from building their strongest board, you will be in huge amounts of trouble. Off the top of that as well, when it is used as synchro material, it can Foolish Burial, which is important for the Summit combo, which is a little bit old school, but it is still really cool. It's one of them ones where if you've opened up the ability to get to Tire, it can unlock you your full board. And what I mean by that is long one can discard a worm monster. You can then make your level 10 synchro. You can normal summon your Tire. Tire can then banish that worm from the graveyard to spawn another token to make your Yugioh, sorry. He will then be able to search you out a Summit, while this Foolish Burial is Mo Yi. You activate the Summit, you bring back your Mo Yi, you reveal a Tenyi or a Swordsoul, technically a worm, in the hand, and then you get to synchro into another level 8, which will then trigger an additional effect. So it's really cool. And then of course you do play 3 tokens. So we've got 1 of each of the tokens. Shout out to Rockets. I've got their link in the description below where you can go and get your own custom tokens for this deck, or any deck. They do some really awesome tokens. You can get these in like Prismatic Secret, which is the ones that I've got here. You can also get them in Normal Secret, Ultra Rares, Super Rares, you name it. Really kind of cool. Then the last of the Swordsoul monsters, we do play triple Incredible Ecclesia the Virtuous. Now, I'm not completely sold on this card, but again, it's had 2 reprints since. It's nice for graveyard recursion during the end of the turn, but the issue is it's a card that should have said if you control no monsters or your opponent controls a monster, special summon it. Yes, it would have been busted for the deck, but it's just kind of one of the ones where it's great going second. It's a free card going second because this can be tributed to turn into ideally your Moyi or your Tyre. The only issue is, again, it's a normal summon that can do that, but it's not what you want to rely on. Like, you don't want to see no Swordsoul in your hand and only this is your normal summon to get you into Tyre or the Moyi. You want to use it as that free extender for pretty much nothing to increase your consistency, but because it does give you the ability to get into any of them, you do use it as a quick effect. If you wanted to, you could spice in one for Navalbaz, but it's very rare that actually ever happens. Moving on to the Tenyis, we do have triple Vishuda. This has had a rare, a super, and a common, as well as the ultra print. Triple Adhara and triple Ashuna. So I'll explain these and why we've maxed them out in comparison to the last one that I'll show you. So Vishuda has the ability to banish it from the graveyard while you control a non-effect monster to target and return one card on the field to the hand, which is very important to deal with floodgates. It's very important to deal with just basic out and out. So you can target a Sprite Elf, for example, to try and return that back to the hand, and then your opponent will be forced to kind of trigger it, return it, and everything else. All of these have the same effects. If you control no monsters or no effect monsters, technically it's when you control no monsters, you can special summon them from the hand. Keep in mind as well, their secondary effects, so obviously the Vishuda bounce, the Adhara to banish and add back a worm from the banished zone to the hand, Ashuna to banish and special summon a worm from the deck, or a Tenyi from the deck specifically. All of those effects can be activated in the hand or the graveyard. So that's one thing to keep in mind, because a lot of people forget that these can actually be activated in the hand. So your opponent's like, oh, you know what, I've completely shut off your graveyard, I've banished your graveyard, I've put you under D-Shifter. As long as you control a non-effect monster, you can still activate these to banish them from the hand and get a bounce. So, like Macrocosm or D-Fissure, Vishuda, bounce. And then you can activate Adhara to add the Vishuda back to the hand, and you can still make your plays. Very, very cool. Keep in one note, when you add to the Ashuna, you do lock yourself into worms, which means you won't be able to get into like Dragite, you won't be able to get into any other synchro monsters. Apart from that, it will still allow you to get into your Tenyis and your Sword-Souls, but obviously it won't be able to get you into a Baron, which you don't really care about in this budget version. You just need to keep that in mind because you don't want to be getting minimal game losses for something like that. The last one we play is the one Shafana. So this is purely for the fact that, again, it's a level 4, which can come up because there will be times when your opponent will kill your monster and go, haha, I've left you with a token that locks you into synchros, and you go, sure, activate Ashuna, summon this out, make my level 8 synchros, off we go again. On top of that as well, its graveyard effect is if a normal monster you control is destroyed by battle or card effect, you get to target one of those monsters, bring it back to the board, and pop the monster that killed it, which is really, really cool because you basically get a free pop. Then for the hand traps, I've only gone with 2 Ash Blossoms, but I also do play 2 Infinite Impermanences. It's just to kind of give you that balance. Like, if you're in a branded matchup, Ash and their branded fusion can be very, very damaging. And then you also want to be able to deal with those annoying little pesky floodgate decks, which are playing like Vanities, or playing like a card like Totally Awesome, playing a card like Sprite Elf. You want to be able to stop it where at all possible, which is why we've gone with a 2 and 2. Onto the spells. For consistency, we do have Triple Emergence. So this will let you add any Swordsoul monster from your deck to the hand. But if you control a Synchro monster, you get to add a Worm monster. Now, it may come up in this one to get you into a Tenyi sometimes, but it was more so that second effect used in the past to deal with, or get into, like, the Protoss. Off the back of that as well, this does have a graveyard effect, so does Summit, so I'll show you Summit as well. So these have a graveyard effect, so they can obviously be banished because Tyre can banish a Swordsoul card or a Worm card, and then it will increase or decrease the level of a Tenyi monster by 1, which is really important. Off the back of that, Summit is basically your monster reborn, so you target a Swordsoul monster in the graveyard. If you control a Synchro monster, you can target any Worm monster, and you get to special summon it. Then, of course, we've got 2 Pot of Desires. I love this card having it back at 2 because it lets your boss monster in this deck, which is going to be even more prominent, become even bigger of a boss monster. I then play double Heavenly Cycle and double Circle. Now, I know a lot of people play 3 and 2 or 3 and 3. It is entirely up to you on your ratios with this. It depends on your luck. Like, sometimes I'll see 3 of this, I'm like, well, this is completely pointless. Sometimes I'll want to see 3 of this. So if I was going to bump anything, I would probably be Circle to 3 and then Cycle to keep it as 2. So the Circle, you tribute a Worm monster to add a Worm monster from your deck to the hand. Or if you tributed a non-effect monster to activate this card, you get to special summon it instead, but negate its effects. During the main phase, if you control a face-up non-effect monster, you can banish this card from the graveyard to add a 10-year card from your deck to the hand. So it searches, you can only use each effect once per turn, so you want to make sure, oh sorry, you can only use one effect per turn, so it basically means you can't use the tribute and summon or search, and then you can't use the banish and search. But the idea is it lets you play around imperms, veilers, targeted effect negations, and it will let you deal with stuff like Mystic Minds and lockouts and everything like that. Vessel is you get to send a worm monster from your deck to the graveyard, and then if you control a face-up non-effect monster, you get to add from your deck to the hand a 10-year monster with a different name from that monster to your hand. So, the one that is sent to the graveyard. So what makes that really important is it's a nice Foolish Burial, it sets you up your tire plays, but it also then lets you search and consider to extend your plays with your 10 years. Last spell card is Call by the Grave. And then the last trap cards is triple Rivalry of the Warlords. You literally only play worms. Like if you're definitely not playing Baron, so triple Rivalry is busted. Yes, it's really good against tiers because they are a mixture of like fairies, warriors. It can be very, very damaging for them and can be very, very struggle for them to deal with. Yes, they can deal with it with Pelourinho and Screams and everything like that. But if they don't get to those cards, if they don't mill those right cards, if they can't fusion summon because they're already locked into that particular type, they're not going to be able to get rid of it. And then, of course, you've got 2 Blackout. I'm so thankful this card got a rarity upgrade. Very nice. Love the artwork. Such a good card. So, tribute a worm monster you control, and then 2 cards your opponent controls and destroy them. Again, if you banish it, you get to spawn a Swordsoul token, which is really important, which is why some people do play Gold Sock as well. And if you combo this off with the Shafana, the best thing with the Shafana is, specifically, if a face-up non-effect monster you control is destroyed by battle card effect. So even if you destroy it with your own card effect, you can banish it from the graveyard and then target one of the destroyed monsters, which will ideally mostly be Monk. You get to bring Monk back and then destroy one monster your opponent controls. So again, this can become a triple pop, because keep in mind, Blackout can deal with back row, and then if you pop something like your Monk with Shafana in the grave, you get to pop a third. Again, it's a little bit of a old school play for this particular type of deck, and it has evolved a bit, but it is still an option that you have, so I want to make sure that all of you watching this are aware of it, because I'm believing that you're building this deck as a new player to Swordsoul. Moving on to the extra deck, we do have triple Monk at the 10-year. This has had 2 prints, a rare and a super rare from OTS. We then play the 1 Shaman. Now again, it's very rare you make this, so if you've got space or there's a card that you really, really like and you want to bump up, you can. But it is one of them ones where it does give you that ability to discard a card, bring one back from the graveyard. Keep in mind you can't activate monsters effects from the extra deck. Not the turn, but after you activate this. So you target a worm monster in your graveyard, special summon it, and the rest of the turn you can't activate the effects of monsters specialed from the extra deck. So if you bring back one of your extra deck monsters, like these guys here, you're still able to activate their effects because they're not summoned from the extra deck. For the Yang Zings, we are playing 1 Yazi, double Baxia. So both of these, I believe this had a rare print, and these definitely had a rare print. I think this had in King's Court, and then this got a rare print somewhere else, so it's definitely easy to get. Chao Feng, so this is to like lock out and Nibiru protection. So again, for those of you that don't know, the way this works is you activate Baxia, and then Baxia can pop a card to bring back the Adhara, which is a level 1 tuner, and then you sync these two together to make this. And then this one lets you, your opponent cannot activate card effects or monster effects with the same attribute of the Yang Zing used to make it. So because you make this, it can't be used light, your opponent can't use light monster effects. So it means they can't Nibiru you, they can't Veiler you, everything like that. And then we've got the 1 Draco Berserker of the 10-year. Really love this card. Such a boss monster. For the sword size, we've got 2 Chijia, the 1 Mac Daddy Sovereign, and the 1 Boss Monster Sovereign. So, for those of you that don't know what they do, let's put these here. This one, you can target, banish a Swordsoul card from your graveyard as a quick effect, and then target, or a Worm card from your graveyard to target another effect monster on the field and negate its effects. You can only use 1 effect per turn, because its other effect is, if it is Synchro Summoned, you get to add to your hand a Swordsoul card from your deck. So that's really important. This one is, if you Synchro Summon another Worm monster while this monster is on the field, you get to draw 1 card. If your opponent special summons a monster except during damage step, you can banish one of those monsters, and if you do, inflict 1200 damage to your opponent for that. And then when your opponent activates a spell or trap card or effect, quick effect, you get to banish that card, and if you do, they burn them for another 1200. Broken. This one is the Mac Daddy. I love this card. I really wish this had a secret so it can match its brothers. For each banished card, this card gains 100 attack and defense, and monsters your opponent controls lose 100 attack and defense. If this card would be destroyed by card effect, you get to banish 1 card from the graveyard instead. And then if a card or cards is banished except during the damage step, you get to banish non-target 1 card each from both your opponent's field and their graveyard. So you have the ability to trigger this during your turn as well, and during your opponent's turn, which is really, really important. And then just to fill the spaces of Baron, we've got the one Dragite and the one Omega. These are rare occurrences. You will actually make them. Like 9 times out of 10, if you really, really wanted to, you could bump these up to 2s if you wanted to. You bump this up to 3, bump that up to 3, Yazi up to 2. Absolutely fine. Like, they are your staple cards that you will go through more times than not. These are just fillers for the Baron, and they are cheap alternatives. So should you make them, you've got a nice spell and trap negate for something like Evenly, and then should you make this, you can rip one from your opponent's hand, which is really, really important, because this will actually put in a lot of work for you by doing that, and it also lets you recur your banished cards as well. So, yeah. And that is it, ladies and gentlemen, for the budget Swordsoul profile. It's a little bit different. I mean, it's not massively different from a full-powered version. The full-powered version would just involve droplets, it would involve the Baron de Fleur, but in theory this entire deck can be made like well under £100 and it can still compete. It won't be as good as it once was, but it can still put up a massive fight, and it's actually been doing really well. Like, there's someone playing this at our locals that not a lot of people expect Swordsoul, and it does incredibly well because everyone's prepared for tiers and everything else like that, but they're not ready for Swordsoul, and they just come in swinging, and they are taking the top spots. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share. Till next time, guys, as absolutely always, stay safe, and of course, happy dueling.